Morning out there, everybody. How we doing today? Well, we're out here doing another video today. Just wanted to see if you wanted to come along with me there. So I'm here in Southern Appalachia in Bluefield, Virginia. And today we're going to go and see if we can find Rebecca Davidson. She was captured back in 1791 by some Indians and was taken and was on a long journey. She traveled 600 miles, over 600 miles, to Canada and was sold to a French farmer and was in captivity there for a year or so until her husband got back up with her and brought her back here to Virginia. So we're going to go see if we can find her and maybe find where she's buried today, and we will try to tell the story as best as we can. It's a very, very interesting story. She survived it back here, but we'll get into all that when we get into the video here a little bit. But we're going to go to the farm where she was captured. The cabin's still standing there. I think it's reconstructed though, but we'll start the video there and we'll check and see what all happened through these years. She went through an ordeal. So it wasn't just her, it was her children also that was taken. And come along with me there. We'll go on this journey. Be right back with you in a bit. Anderson. See a Robert Davidson and a Henry Davidson. All the graves are too recent, late 1800s and early 1800s for most of this. But this is where she was supposed to be buried at one time, out here at the Davidson Cemetery. But I don't see that Anderson is here. So don't see any 1700s born or anything. Or I see a Henry Cass Davidson. Late 1800s, but nothing back in the 1700s. So either I'm at the wrong Davidson Cemetery, or he's not buried here. She once was. All right. At least we know that there's no stone for him here. But supposedly this is where she's supposed to have been. But the history says that they moved her. All right. Where Miss Rebecca was captured and her children taken, and she was later sold to a French farmer in Canada. So it says here, Andrew Davidson, site of the pioneer cabin of Andrew Davidson. While he was absent, the Indians burned his cabin, tomahawked his children, and captured his wife. Mrs. Davidson was sold to a Canadian family from whom she was ransomed. Wow. You know, she had traveled altogether over 600 miles from here through down into Logan. Well, we'll get into all that here just in a few minutes, but this is actually the site right here that she was captured from, and a replica of the cabin that was here. Excuse the traffic. The actual cabin they had burnt. They had burnt down and taken her and her children to actually ended up in Ohio, where some of the Indians were taking a lot of the folks from these areas and taking them and selling them, and trading them. And she was taken here from the year 1791. Yeah, see if we can get by the vehicles and the airplanes and all that going by to do this. But it's a humbling experience just to be sitting here among, after you've read the story about what this is all about. But we'll go ahead and get into the story so y'all know. So, 1791, Mrs. Andrew Davidson in the early spring was gathering sugar water from a sugar tree, which is a maple, actually. Uh, they even still do that from time to time. You can get sugar from a maple. Just put a pipe into it, drill a hole in it, put a pipe into it, and drain it of its sugar water. That's what she was doing that day. Home was on the headwaters of East River, a few miles east of present Bluefield site. That's where we are now, Bluefield, Virginia. When she saw Indians approaching, their presence filled her with sudden fear, for she had no gun with her to defend herself. Besides, her husband had gone left on a trip to Smithfield, which is now Blacksburg, Virginia, on a business trip. Mrs. Davidson had 3 small children, 2 little girls and a boy, were at the cabin with some Bloomfield orphans whom she had taken in. Looking back at the house, she could see part of them playing in the yard, happy, unmindful of what was going on. The woman stood beside a big gray bark maple tree into which cedar spiles. She had driven spikes in for dripping the water into the wooden trough as she was gathering her sugar maple water. She set down a wooden pail containing sugar water. She meant to carry them to the house and pour them into the 3 big iron kettles where the water was boiling at the time. After the sugar water had boiled, she carried the sugar over toward the house, and one of the Indians said, "Come." She could speak English. He pointed northward, and she knew what that meant. They would take her to their own Ohio River settlements there in Ohio. Leaving the water pail, she started walking slowly toward the house. The savages did not seem to mind that she knew that they had her, that she was walking away, because they meant to ransack this cabin anyway, in which they ended up burning it. She arrived at the house. The children gathered around her, clinging to her, staring at the savages. Again, the English-speaking Indian pointed. "We go." She said, "We can't go," Mr. Davidson said. "The children are too small to travel." She was expected another baby soon, so she was with child. While she and the children stood there, some of the Indians went inside the house. Soon they came out with such articles. They were just plundering and taking whatever they could find, pots, pans, blankets, clothing. And the children began to cry and cling to her mother. Presently, some of the Indians put fire to the building and set it afire. And they said, "Now let's go." The leader, baby, the woman, and the children, he prodded them with a stick. Then her head down, they started on their way. party moved of the valley going westward through West Virginia, fought her as much as they would. Mr. Davidson could not walk fast. Sweat beaded upon her brow, her lips got dry. No one come in pursuit of the family because there wasn't many people lived around close, and the only thing they could see maybe from a distance would be the fire after the house started burning. Said the further they went through the mountains, the worse Mr. Davidson felt. By the time they reached what is now known as Logan, West Virginia, she had to stop. And while the party waited, the woman gave birth to her premature baby. Wow. So she traveled all this distance from Bluefield all the way to Logan without stopping. And when they did stop, she had her baby. Well, 2 hours after the birth, the Indians compelled her to continue on the journey. Her weak condition, she stumbled onward, carried her newborn. The child, the Indians decided, was weak. One was more nuisance, said the baby was a nuisance. So the second day out, they drowned it in the creek and left the body. Wow. What people went through back in the day. So after this episode, she seems to sympathize with Mrs. Davidson in her anguish and made a point to be kinder to her. Wow, after done all that to her, killed her child, now they're going to be kinder to her. But her hope failed to come true, for when they reached the towns, the little girls were tied to a tree and shot to death in the presence of her mother. Well, the farther they went, they killed their children along the way. Said later her son was given to an old squaw for an adoption. One day the squaw took the boy with her to a canoe. And the boy was scared, but he knew of nothing else, so he tried to get out. So when he did, he fell overboard and drowned. So her last child, little boy, he drowned in a river. Says that the canoe was shoved out to the banks of the water. The squaw began to take the oars soon, had the boat in the middle of the stream. A swift current caught it in a swirl, and around. Boy leaped up, topped overboard, and squaw was not able to recover the boy. He washed up in the river. Wow. You know, I normally don't do these kind of videos, but this is very interesting. She was captured from here and taken all the way through down to Logan. Now they're going to be going on into Ohio, where actually they were going to take her. But all this time, her husband was probably oblivious to what was even going on, because he was on a business trip several miles up the road to Blacksburg. So Mr. Dave was soon sold to a Frenchman in Canada. She parted with the two Broomfield boys, whom she never saw again, was the two children I was talking about earlier, that it wasn't her that she'd taken in. This time an old chief told him that his wife was sold to a Frenchman in Canada. So when he come back, he found out that her wife and children, his wife and children were gone, and he'd searched and searched for her for going on 2 years. So after this period of time, he got up with an old Indian that told him about her whereabouts. So he started his trek to Canada, which was actually where she was taken. At first, she was taken to Ohio, as I was mentioning earlier, and sold there to the Frenchmen. That's where a lot of the Indians would take uh, people that they captured, taking them there and sold them out for slaves or whatever, servants. So this time went on, a couple of years went by, he located her. So he's traveled for 600 miles or so from here to Canada, which takes about a month by horseback or better. And he stops at this old place here. It says here, upon arriving at the French settlement, Andrew stopped at the home of a wealthy French farmer to get something to eat. When he entered the house, he noticed a woman who bowed to him. She went on about her work. When he sat down at the table to eat, the woman passed him in the room again. He had taken but a few bites when he heard the woman say to her mistress, "I know this man." The other woman replied, "Well, who is it?" She said, "It's my husband." Then the woman ran to Andrew and fairly shouted, "Andrew, I'm your wife." Wow. "Do you know me?" Andrew got up from the table, stared at the woman for a moment, wondering, really, is she my wife? Yet she must be. There's a resemblance of my wife. When he last seen her, she looked young, her hair was cold, jet black, but now it is snow white. She looked old and worn and wretched. Wow. Just that short time, 2 years was a long time to be in captive like that. Andrew took her into his arms, and she cried and she pressed her face to his breast. "Rebecca," whispered Andrew, "my own dear Rebecca." After a while, she looked into Andrew's face, smiled, and said, "You look well, Andrew, but I've suffered, and you know you must have suffered," he said. The French farmer came to his house. Without protest, gave Rebecca to her husband. Next day, they started their long journey back southward. They returned to the vicinity of the former home, built a house at the end of Abbs Valley. Here they says here that they had another small family. It says the descendants are now living there in the valley. And talking earlier about traveling, this day and time we can travel far distance pretty quick. During this period of time, they traveled either by horseback, canoes, on rivers, or through paths, creeks, and stuff like that. And it took a long time to make any kind of distance. And I was just looking to see how many miles it was here from Bluefield, Virginia. I think it's Ontario, Canada, somewhere in Montreal, somewhere that they had taken her to. And it's over 600 miles from here. And it's a horse will travel, they say, from 15 to 30 miles a day. And that's just traveling. If you're running it hard, you probably can go further, but let's just say 30 miles a day, say 10 days, 2 weeks, that's 300 miles. So 600 miles, it'd take over a month just to get there. That's without stopping, and I'm sure they've stopped many times along the way, so it probably took a month or two to actually get there. And for Mr. Davidson to get there and to get her back. Wow. So I checked to see how long it takes by driving a vehicle. It only takes around 12 hours to drive a vehicle up there from here. Wow, how things has changed. Things have got a lot easier for people. But after he'd gotten her and brought her back, she only lived 2 years after that. And she was only in her 30s, a very young lady. This period of time as a young person. But she had been through so much through what had gone on with her. And there probably a lot went on. I guarantee you there's a lot went on with her that wasn't in this history stuff or these papers that happened to her along the way with the Indians. Enough was them killing her children right in front of her, which she had 3, and then she had the little one on the way, which is 4, the 2 little girls and a little boy. So he brings her back, and they start another little home here, not too far away from here in Abbs Valley. In fact, I done a video there in Abbs Valley not too long, awful long ago, about a Indian skirmish over there too. And I found a little graveyard, which I've forgotten about over there. But anyway, they settled there at the end of Abbs Valley. And within 2 years, she had passed away. Well, she was buried over in the Davidson Cemetery, just over on Littlesburg Road, which I'm thinking that's where it's at, the way it looks. So I went there this morning. I was going to actually, she was buried there, but she was removed and taken to another graveyard in Giles County. But anyway, she was moved from there and taken to another graveyard. The place is called Horseshoe Cemetery in Pembroke, which is about 30-40 minutes from here by driving. So we're going to head over that way and see if we can find her grave, if we can get to the graveyard. But I failed to mention to say that her birth date was 1765 and she passed away in 1796. Her age was said to be around 30, 31 years old. Wow. She was the daughter of Thomas and Clara Burke from Burke's Garden. See, that's another story in itself. Burke's Garden, which is a beautiful place over there. A lot of stuff had went on over there too with Indians and stuff. And some of her families was Burke's, which that's what Burke's Garden was named after. So it's kind of a small world. But we'll travel over that way and see if we can find her grave today. Well, I've picked up some hitchhikers along the way, but they're driving now. I'm in the passenger side. Look back here. I got a little girl back here who's going to show me where to go today.
I have to get glasses tomorrow.
Yeah, she's about blind, she is. Can't see, she says. Well, we're about 40 miles. Bluefield to Pembroke, where Miss Rebecca is buried. We're on our way there to try to get to the graveyard so we can see where she's buried. So we'll catch you there. We're about 35 miles out. Well, we found the graveyard Miss Rebecca's buried in, but you can't get in there. The gate's locked, so we're not going to try to do that. Looks like for the picture on here, it's right over there in the end. Over there. We're showing the picture here. So this is where she was brought to later on. So we'll go ahead and end this video out here. And thank y'all so much for coming along. So y'all, we thank y'all so much for coming along. And we'll do another video for long. We did find out where she was, or where she is. And thank y'all so much. This is Appalachian Roots with Dan. We'll be Over and out for now.